Let me ask you something that you will probably deny at first. If you had to choose between a life of complete freedom, where no one controls you but every day is uncertain, or a life where all your needs are met, where you are safe, fed, entertained, but you must follow the rules and surrender your independence, which would you honestly choose? And before you answer, remember, your comfort, your security, your routine, all of it is on the line. The truth, the one we bury deep under layers of pride, is that most people would choose comfort, not because they are weak, but because comfort feels like safety. And safety is one of the most addictive drugs in human history. You probably believe you are free. After all, no one is chaining you to a wall. You can leave your house when you want. You can choose what clothes to wear, what food to eat, which shows to watch. You can travel to the other side of the world if you can afford the ticket. That feels like freedom. But there's a quiet truth most people never stop to question. Freedom is not measured by the number of options you have, but by the courage to take them. And most of us, if we're honest, rarely use the freedom we already have. Imagine a man named Daniel. On paper, his life looks perfect. He lives in a nice apartment in a safe neighborhood. He has a job that pays enough for vacations and a new phone every year. He goes out with friends, posts happy pictures on Instagram, and occasionally daydreams about quitting everything to travel the world. But here's the thing. Daniel will never take that leap. Why? Because every step toward that dream feels like a step into chaos. He worries about what would happen if he lost his stable income, if his trip didn't work out, if people judged him for being reckless. So he stays. He stays in a job that quietly drains him, in a routine that numbs him, in a lifestyle that leaves him wondering why he feels restless even when he's successful. Daniel is not free. He is comfortable. And comfort, when it becomes a cage, is far harder to escape than chains you can see. There's another quiet distinction most people miss: the difference between freedom and permission. Freedom means you decide for yourself. Permission means you can only do something when someone else allows it. Many of the freedoms we enjoy are actually just permissions given to us by systems we do not control. You are free to travel until the border closes. You are free to work until the company decides you're no longer needed. You are free to speak your mind until someone decides your words cross an invisible line. Real freedom, the kind Plato, Nietzsche, and Bonhoeffer wrestled with, requires you to be the author of your own life, not just an actor reading lines from someone else's script. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "Freedom is the will to be responsible for ourselves." This is the part people forget. Freedom is heavy. It requires you to make choices without guarantees, to take the blame when things go wrong, to work without someone telling you exactly what to do. That's why so many of us unconsciously prefer the comfort of being told what to do. There's less risk, less uncertainty. Someone else carries the burden of responsibility, and if things go badly, we get to blame them. This is why comfort can be more dangerous than oppression. It removes the pressure to act. Here's how it works. First, life gives you small comforts: a warm bed, regular meals, a little entertainment. Then over time, those comforts become expectations. You don't just want a hot shower. You feel something is wrong if you don't get it. You don't just like the paycheck. You feel panic at the thought of it stopping. The trap tightens when the fear of losing comfort outweighs the discomfort of giving up freedom. At that point, you'll accept almost any condition, so long as the stream of comfort never stops. It's the same principle used in domestication. A wild animal must be fed, sheltered, and kept safe until it loses the instinct to survive on its own. Plato saw this over 2,000 years ago in his allegory of the cave. In the story, prisoners are chained in a cave, watching shadows on a wall. These shadows are their reality. If someone broke free and tried to drag them outside, into the blinding light of truth, they wouldn't thank him. They'd fight him. They'd run back to the comfort of the familiar shadows. Because truth is disorienting. Freedom is terrifying when you've spent your life in chains. We like to believe that if we were in that cave, we would walk into the light without hesitation. But the human mind is a master at clinging to the known, even when it's killing us. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian executed for resisting Hitler, wrote something chilling. "The ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world it leaves to its children. A society obsessed with comfort leaves behind a world where people will surrender anything to avoid hardship, even their own freedom. Bonhoeffer saw how ordinary people, not fanatics, not criminals, but neighbors and shopkeepers, would trade their voice, their conscience, and their liberty for the illusion of safety under the Nazi regime. Evil doesn't always march in with a gun. Sometimes it walks in with an offer. You don't have to worry, we'll take care of everything. Just do as we say. Psychologists call it learned helplessness. When you believe that your actions cannot change your circumstances, you stop trying. Once this sets in, freedom starts to feel less like a right and more like a burden. Why take risks, make hard choices, or face the unknown when someone else can do it for you? The mind rewires itself to seek out not autonomy, but approval. You learn to read the rules, please the authority, and avoid trouble. In exchange, you get the comfort of predictability, the warm blanket of everything is taken care of. History is a graveyard of civilizations that traded freedom for comfort. The Roman Empire in its later years gave its citizens bread and circuses, food and entertainment to keep them distracted while political corruption spread like rot. In the Soviet Union, people learned that staying silent and accepting what the state provided was safer than speaking out. In every case, the surrender began not with force, but with a slow erosion of the will to resist. Machiavelli noted that people will endure the loss of freedom so long as their daily lives remain pleasant. Only when comfort disappears do they suddenly care about liberty again. But by then, it's often too late. Here's where it gets personal. We can point to history, to other countries, to those people who gave in. But what about you? What freedoms have you quietly given up for the sake of ease? How many times have you avoided a confrontation, stayed silent in a meeting, accepted an unfair rule, all because you didn't want the stress that would come from speaking up? Every time you do this, the habit grows, and habits become identity, until one day you wake up and realize you've built yourself a comfortable prison. We all love the story of the rebel who fights for freedom against all odds. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The rebel is the exception, not the rule. Most people, if given the choice, will not follow the rebel into uncertainty. They will stay with the tyrant who promises comfort. And if the rebel becomes too disruptive, they will side with the tyrant to restore the peace. Because comfort feels like stability, and stability feels like survival. Does this mean the battle is lost? Not at all. The way out of the comfort trap isn't always dramatic. It can start with small, deliberate acts. Saying what you truly think, even if it's awkward. Turning off the endless stream of distraction to sit in silence. Choosing to take a risk that scares you and surviving it. Each small act strengthens the muscle of freedom. And like any muscle, it grows with use. Nietzsche believed that true freedom belongs to the individual who is willing to carry the weight of their own life. Not just the victories, but the failures. Not just the pleasures, but the suffering. He warned that this path is not for everyone. It is steep, lonely, and full of uncertainty. But at its end lies something that comfort can never give you, the knowledge that your life is truly your own. So here's the question I leave with you. If tomorrow you were given the choice, absolute freedom with all its risks or absolute comfort with all its safety, which would you choose? And more importantly, would you be honest about your answer? Most people will never face this choice in such a clear form. Instead, they will lose freedom in pieces, a small compromise here, an accepted rule there, until they no longer notice it's gone. But you are hearing this now, which means you've already seen the edges of the cage. The door is open. The only question is whether you will step through or pull the blanket tighter and go back to sleep. If this message stayed with you, don't let it fade when the video ends. Share it with someone who might be ready for their own first step out of the cave. And if you want to keep choosing the light, subscribe. Because here we keep asking the questions that others are too afraid to ask.